Good morning from the kitchen, folks. Today I'm going to have a go at making my own vodka. So like any vodka, the essential item is of course potatoes. Now today I'm making a large family shepherd's pie and I've got to boil a lot of potatoes, and I got thinking, why don't I save the water that I'm boiling? This water, when it's had the potatoes in it, so it's released all the starches and all the flavours from the potato, why don't I ferment that and then run it through my air still? So let's do it. So I'm going to begin by roughly chopping my potatoes. So for each potato I'm getting kind of 8 pieces. I'm leaving the skin on, that's fine. And then each one of those goes into the pan. Slop. So I've got all my normal potatoes in the pan. I've still got the sweet potato, but this doesn't take as long to cook. So I'm going to put this in a little while, and I'm going to start this off now. I just want this on a very low heat because I want the potatoes to cook slowly, so they slowly release all their goodness into that water for the vodka. So I'm just going to pop the lid on and I'll come back to that in a little while. Incidentally, the noise you can hear in the background is my air still, which is currently going, and we're just starting now with removing the heads. I'm actually just making some wine into schnapps over here. Okay, they're still in. The shepherd's pie is coming together. But let's look at the stars of the show for the vodka, the potatoes. They've been in the pan for an hour, they've just started to boil now, but look at the colour of the water as all the starch and the goodness comes out of the potatoes, which is going to flavour the vodka. Anyway, they're still quite hard, so I'm going to leave them for a bit longer. I want them to go fluffy. And I've still got to add the sweet potato yet, but it's not quite time. Right, it's now time to add my sweet potato. Okay, it's time to remove the potatoes from the water now, and you'll note that they're all a little bit fluffy and starting to break, which is what I wanted. Basically I want them to leach out all the nutrients and goodness into that water that's hopefully going to give the vodka some flavour. So I'm just getting it all out now. Okay, it's all very steamy. I've got my potatoes out. They're now going to get mashed ready for the shepherd's pie. But this, what normally goes down the sink, is my liquid gold. I've turned the heat off. I'm going to put the lid back on and I'll come back to it in a minute when I've got my pie together. Anyway, there's the tunnel washing up. There's the shepherd's pie ready to go in the oven. Let's get back to this now. So the next thing that I'm now going to do with this is add an ingredient which may raise an eyebrow. I'm going to add some tomato puree. Now this is tomato paste, and it's just tomato. There's nothing additive wise in it, apart from citric acid. And this will act as a yeast nutrient. So I'm just putting a little bit of that in, probably about a quarter of this tube I've put in, and that's enough. I'm also going to add brewing sugar. And I'm going to add 1.5 kilos of brewing sugar, which is 5 of these jugs. There, so that's all the brewing sugar in now. And I'm just going to give it all a stir. So this is basically the same thing as a tomato paste wash, but done with potato water. Now I don't need to add any more heat to this. The brewing sugar dissolves really easily. So I'm just going to leave this now, and when it's cooled down I'm going to add it into the demijohn and take the gravity and add the yeast. So I'll catch you in a bit. Hey folks, it's actually the next day. Let's have a look how my vodka must is doing. So here it is. It's been in the pan overnight. It's cooled down to room temperature. It's just right now for taking the original gravity. So what I'm going to do first is pour it into my demijohn, which is at the very bottom of the screen. You can maybe see a funnel. That's going into my demijohn. It's a standard 1 gallon, 4.54 litres Boots demijohn, or carboy to you Americans. It's funny how we speak one language in so many different ways. I'm just getting a bit frothy at the top now. Bit of sediment in here, but I want this to go in because there'll be some goodness in here in this. Okay, just give the demijohn a little clean. So I'm going to take the original gravity. This will allow me to work out the alcohol by volume of the fermented liquid, which will then go into the distiller. Potato wine, I guess you could say. Ugh. So dropping my hydrometer in. I'm losing a bit, but it doesn't matter. I'm starting on a lovely and healthy original gravity of 1.110, so nice and healthy there. Okay, my yeast of choice today is Lalvin EC1118 champagne, sparkling wine and cider yeast. This can go up to about 18% ABV, so I'm hoping for a good strong brew. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon and 2 teaspoons in there. Now you'll note that my demijohn is extremely full, too full. I'm not worried about that because I'm going to install a blow-off pipe into the demijohn, so the krausen that this creates will likely rise up and out, but with a blow-off pipe it won't cause any damage. Before I do that though, I'm just going to give this a little shake around so that the yeast sinks into the must. Okay, so just to show you, this is a blow-off pipe. It's just simply a bung with a hole in like you would have on a standard airlock. I've got a tube connecting it into this bottle here. Now in this end of the tube I've actually got a metal reusable drink straw inside the tube to keep it rigid. But that then goes into this bottle here which has got water in, and in essence it makes a big airlock. So when fermentation happens and CO2 is produced, it comes up the pipe and it bubbles down here in the water. Now I'm not going to leave this here because obviously it's not in a very practical position in my kitchen sink. I'm going to move it into place in my living room and then I'll come back to you when fermentation has begun. Okay, it's a few hours later. My apologies for forgetting to check exactly when fermentation began, but the krausen there certainly tells us that it has begun. It's not going mad or anything yet, and there's only the occasional bubble coming through the blow-off pipe. But it's happening, so unless anything remarkable happens, I'll catch you when fermentation's over. Okay, it's 9 days later, and I'm just going to give you a little fermentation update. As you can see, the blow-off pipe was definitely needed, and this is still fermenting very strongly, but all the gunk that was going to get blown out has been blown out, and there's now a space at the top of the demijohn, so I can replace it with a bubbler. I'll just take that out of there and pop a bubbler in, and you'll see that the bubbler is now going straight away. So this has probably got another couple of weeks of fermenting left to do. Good morning from the kitchen, folks. Today I'm going to be distilling my potato wash to turn it into vodka. Let's have a look at that wash. Here it is. It's actually been in the demijohn for 8 weeks, 2 months, and it's fermented for 7 of those weeks. It's been an absolute belter, this. It would not stop fermenting. And in fact, the only reason I've got negative pressure now in the airlock is because I've had it cold crashing for 3 days. You can see it's nice and clear. The cloudiness that you can see here is actually starchy residue from the potatoes, which is stuck to the inside of the glass. But that is a pretty clear liquid in there. So what I want to do prior to stilling is take the final gravity to work out the ABV of what the potato wash is before it goes into the still. So get that bung out. I'll drop that in here because it's full of sanitizer for the next big brew. Right, let's have a look. It smells like dry white wine. Oh, God, yeah, really dry white wine. Quite pungent as well. It actually smells like proper home brew. That's what, you know, the sort of stuff that makes you go blind if you drink too much of it. Right, let's have a look at that. Wow. Oh, flipping heck. That's a sinker. My word. I finished on a final gravity of 0.990. That could not have fermented anymore. That's pretty damn good. So I need to work out the final alcohol by volume. So I take the original gravity of 1.110. I deduct from that the final gravity of 0.990 and I get a figure of 0.12. I multiply this by 131.25 and I get a final alcohol by volume of 15.75%. That is pretty good. I'm happy with that. Ka-ching. So welcome to the conservatory, folks. This is where today's stilling is going to take place. Hence the extra clothing, because it is pretty chilly in here. It was 1 degree overnight outside, and you can see I've already steamed up the windows by coming in here. It will warm up this afternoon, but this is also where I cold crash at night time, because it's very good for it with the cold temperatures. So this is where I've got my potato wash, and I'm now going to siphon into the air still, which is below. This holds 4.54 litres when full. It's not quite full at the minute. I'm going to stop it just before the sediment line, just there. Right, wish me luck. So immediately it's brought out some sediment because I've got the bottom of the siphoning tube down just above the sediment line. It won't bring too much, and that's fine. The air still itself holds 4 litres. So I'm quite confident that I'll be able to just fill this nicely, and maybe just a little bit over, and that will be this done. I won't need to take any more out of it. Also note that I'm holding the siphoning tube in place with this really handy clip. Bought it off eBay. So that's going down in there just nicely. I'll come back to you in a sec when this is over. There we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube, and that is done. It's slightly fuller than what I would normally use it, but I think I can get away with that. So because this is very slightly overly full, and I don't want to have any eruptions, I'm going to put a little bit of distilling conditioner in, which will hopefully keep things nice and calm in there. I've not had an eruption yet, so fingers crossed I won't have an eruption. So I'm now going to put the top of the air still on, and it literally just sits on top. And this bit here at the side plugs into the bottom of the still, so I've got to line this up. It's a bit like plugging a PC monitor into the PC base. Going a bit old school there. And I turn the still round. So this is my still setup now. I've got the collection bottle there and the funnel, so when it comes out of the still to begin with, we'll go into that collection bottle. I'm going to collect what's called the heads. This is the nasty bit that comes out to begin with that you don't want to keep, but it does have its uses. So I'm going to turn the still on, just there, and this will start to come through in about an hour's time. So we'll have a progress update in a little while. Okay, it's been an hour and 30 minutes actually, but the heads are now coming through, and I need to collect 200 ml in this bottle. This is going to be not used in the final spirit, but it does have other uses. It's highly flammable, so you would treat it with the same respect as you would petrol. And as you can see, it's in there. When it gets to the top of that tree, that's 200 ml, and that's what I'm going to save for the heads. So I'm just playing the waiting game right now. I'll come back to you when the heads have been collected. Okay, that is the heads harvested. There's 200 ml there. I'm going to switch this off now, and I'm just going to leave that to carry on dripping through until it stops. That's stopped coming through, so I'm just going to take this out, remove the funnel and place a bung in the top of that. I'm going to use this as fire lighter. It's highly flammable and I want to keep it away from naked flames or anything that could ignite it, so I'm just going to put this somewhere safe for now. So the 200 ml of liquid that I've collected from the stills so far is called the heads. That's the bit that we're not drinking. Now I'm going to collect the hearts on what is called the stripping run. So I've now got a slightly different setup for the stripping run. I'll talk you through this. So beneath my air still now, I've got this copper device here, which is called a parrot. The liquid will drip out of there and then fill this up and rise to the top and then come along here and drop out into the collection bottle. As it rises up here, it will lift up this device. This is called an alcometer, and that allows me to monitor the ABV of the liquid coming through at any one time. I'm expecting it to begin coming through in excess of 60% and possibly higher, and I'm going to collect it until it drops to 20%. So back on, and this is now called the stripping run. So in about 10 minutes the parrot will be full and I'll be able to work out what the ABV of the liquid is coming through, so I'll come back to you then. Okay, so the alcometer has risen and I can see that at the meniscus level it's at 68%, which is a really healthy start. That will soon tip over there, and when it tips over the top it will go down the spout and into the collection bottle. And there we go, collection has now begun. So this is now gathering the hearts. Okay, my first bottle's full, so I'm going to swap them over. Everything in there is between 68 and 46%, so still very strong. So I'm now going to let this continue collecting until the ABV drops to 20%. Okay, the output here has now dropped to 20%, so I'm going to switch this off. And I'm just going to leave this to drip through. I'll come back to it in a little bit. Okay, I'm now going to remove the alcometer. And what I need to do is empty the parrot into the bottle so I don't waste anything that's in the parrot. Slightly easier said than done. And then you've got to go to the other side and empty it from this side. And in essence, I've nearly got a full 500ml bottle here. But the other 500ml bottle was full. I've got near enough a litre of spirit. Right, so I'm back in my kitchen and I'm going to pour both of my bottles now into this demijohn. I want them to mix together because I want to see what the ABV or the alcohol by volume of this liquid is so far. So just give it a little mix. And as you can see, it is actually very nice and clear. And the stripping run does strip out the colour, it strips out any bits, it strips out most of the content within the liquid other than the alcohol. It's got quite a vodka-y, almost tequila-y type smell at this stage. So I'm going to pop 100ml into my hydrometer jar. I'm going to drop my alcometer into this now to see what the alcohol by volume is of the brew so far. So what I've got in there is actually 53%. So just using normal tap water, I'm going to double the physical volume of the liquid in the demijohn, and that will half the alcohol by volume down to somewhere around about 26%. Now the reason that I've watered this down is because I want to run it through the still again. And if you put anything that's high alcohol through the still, there is a danger of fire. I don't want that to happen. So I'm now going to run this through the still again for the second run. And the second run is called the spirit run. Okay, so I'm going to dismantle the air still. Just take the top off anyway. It's extremely hot, so be careful when you do this. You'll see the steam that's come out. This has actually been left for 30 minutes. So this that's left in here is called the tails. So the first bit that came out was the heads. The bit that I'm keeping is the hearts, and this is the tails. Now the tails has got various uses. The two that I've had suggested to me are one as weed killer and two to put in homemade bread. So back in the kitchen. So I'm going to pour my tails into this saucepan and I'm going to come back to them later. So now I've got the still empty and we can move on to the spirit run. So I'm just putting my still back together now. So I've got the power connected and I'm going to tip what's left in this demijohn, which is the spirit and the water. You can see that that's a nice and clear spirit. So as before, the lid goes on. Get my parrot in place, collection bottle, and I'll put the alcometer back into the parrot. So you will note that the setup is exactly the same this time as it was the first time. And now we'll let the spirit run commence. This will take about an hour to come through. I'll come back with an update then. Okay, I'm a little bit delayed coming back to you, but we're currently looking at just above 60% coming through, and the bottle's halfway up, so the spirit run is in full session. So just a little update. What's coming out of there is now just above 50%, and I'm on probably 400ml or thereabouts. Okay, I'm going to swap the collection bottles over. So I'm not far off 500ml in this one. I'll now leave this one, and the alcohol coming out is currently just below 50%. So you can appreciate that this is a long effort. I'm now so far up this bottle just there, and what's coming out is just under 30%. I'm going to carry on till I reach 20%, and then the first stripping run is done. Okay, I'm on 20% and I'm going to switch off now. And I'm just going to leave that for a little while. So it's just simply a case, as before, of me pouring the liquid into this bottle, emptying this when it's cooled down, and then starting again for the third distillation to make this triple distilled. So this is going to be a triple distilled vodka. So I've got to do the second spirit run tomorrow. I'm not going to do it tonight because it takes too long and it's getting quite late now. But tomorrow I'll do another spirit run, which will make this a triple distilled spirit, and then we'll take it from there. Okay? Anyway, I'm just going to go back to the tails because I want to use some of that liquid to make some bread. Here's my bread maker. I've got some sugar, salt and butter in there already. If you're interested in the amounts, it's 1.5 teaspoonfuls of salt, 25 grams of butter and 2 teaspoonfuls of sugar. From the tails, I'm going to add to that 400ml of the liquid. So 400ml of tails. I'm going to add 1 1/4, or let's just say 1.5 teaspoonfuls of yeast, bread yeast, and 600 grams of strong white flour. And this is going to go into my bread maker. It goes nothing. We'll have a bread update in the morning. It's the next morning, it's a bread update, and I'm right excited about this. 1 minute to go. It's ready. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that look good? Wow. Flipping heck, I'm proud of that one. Now that is what you call a seriously good looking loaf of bread. I'm just laying it on its side a minute so the steam can escape from the bottom and it won't go soggy. Oh, yes. Okay, the proof is in the eating. Hot bread, hot fresh bread. It smells wonderful. It's amazing. It's incredible. Don't throw away your tails, make bread. Oh yeah. Hey folks, it's the next day. I'm back to do the second spirit run, which will make this a triple distilled vodka. So I'm going to begin by pouring my spirit back into the air still. There's about 900 ml of spirits going in there. I'm going to dilute that with just over a litre of tap water, just like before. And then it's simply a case of getting the still set up correctly, lining up the top of the unit with the base to get the electrics in, popping the parrot in place, the alcometer in the parrot, and the collection bottle under the spout of the parrot. Let's crack on. So the second spirit run is the final run now of this stilling process. So I'll come back to you in about an hour's time when the liquid begins to come through. So it's been almost an hour and the popping sound has just started. You can hear that. It's very subtle, but if you can hear that, that means that the evaporation and the stilling is beginning, so something will soon be dripping down here into the parrot. I'll be back shortly. The alcometer has risen and it's 70%, which is fantastic. In fact, the dripping has already started going in. There we go. So it's really just a case of playing the waiting game again now. So I'll come back to you with an update in a bit. Okay, my first bottle is now full and it is just on 40%. So that's a good strong bottle. So I'm going to swap my bottles over. And I'm going to continue collection until this drops to 20%. Okay, I've dropped to 20%, so this is now getting switched off. And I just need to leave that now to finish dripping through. Okay, time to remove the alcometer and the parrot, draining that into the bottle. I don't want to waste any. Okay, I'm going to mix both bottles together in my demijohn. Glug, glug, glug. I reckon I've probably got maybe 800 ml, might be a little bit more. Just going to make sure it mixes. Now smell-wise, actually does quite smell like vodka. There is still a sweet tequila-iness to it, but not as much. Oh, that's definitely got a vodka smell to it. That's good. So I'm just going to pour 100 ml into my hydrometer tube. So I'm going to dip my alcometer into here now to see what the alcohol by volume is. And this is finished on exactly 50% ABV. I'm going to leave it at that. That's a cracker. Okay, so here's my vodka in the demijohn. I'm going to leave it in this demijohn now for 3 days. I'm leaving it with this little filter on the top so it can breathe. And what I want to try and achieve is that some of the fumes and some of the fieriness will dissipate in there. This will stop any contaminants from getting in. And then after 3 days, I'm going to bottle it. Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's potato vodka bottling day. Let's have a look at it. So here it is, looking lovely and clear. Looks really good. I'm hoping to be able to fill a 700ml bottle and a smaller bottle. So it smells really good. It definitely smells vodka-y. So I think that the fieriness has largely evaporated out of it, but I'm going to be adding some vegetable glycerin to smooth it out and give it a rounder mouthfeel as well also. So into the 700ml bottle. Okay, I filled this bottle up and I've got 3ml of vegetable glycerin. I'm going to squirt into the top. This contraption is just from a children's medicine bottle. The vegetable glycerin can be purchased online. You can buy it at vape shops and some supermarkets as well. It's not expensive. So I'm going to pop my lid on this bottle. It's a beautiful bottle as well. This is a recycled amaretto bottle. And now my smaller bottle, hopefully I've got enough in here to just fill it up. I've actually got a little bit left. So into this smaller bottle, I'm just going to put 1ml of glycerin. And it's bung in. So I've just made up a couple of labels using a very simple Microsoft Word template. I'm going to print these out. I'm just going to label my bottles. And there they are. So I'll come back to you with an opening and tasting in about a week's time. Catch you then, folks. Good evening from the living room, folks. It's my grand vodka opening night and I'm very excited about this one. I'm always excited about this one, aren't I? It's been in the bottle for 2 weeks. I've no idea what it's going to be like. I don't normally drink spirits neatly, so if I do pull a face, please bear in mind that I don't normally drink spirits neat, and it's 50%, but I will tell you if it tastes like vodka and if I think it'll be all right with the mixer. Okay, so 2 weeks in the bottle, let's have a look. It does smell very vodka-y. I mean, yeah, it definitely does have a vodka smell. This is a blue tinted glass, so the colour of this might not reflect the colour of the liquid, which is very clear. So this is 50%. I'm dripping all over the table. My wife's going to kill me. Right. I'll have a little sip first. That's actually not bad. And it don't half taste like vodka. I'm astounded. I've made vodka from potatoes. I would have thought it. It's pretty good. I mean, I definitely would drink this with a mixer. Probably Coke, knowing me, or lemonade. But I could sip that neatly. If I shot it, I think I'd be feeling like instantly on fire. So I wouldn't shoot it. Anyway, cheers, folks. As usual, it's been a pleasure and a learning curve. And to the good people of Ukraine, Budmo. Catch you on the next film. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is Stu Moss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.